you take. I like the mess you make. I don't know why I love you.
Music's even better than my espresso, you know, like I am all in it. This is great.
It's 'cause you make me smile. You always make me smile.
Kelsey could not agree with you more. This song is real good. Lauren, is this your song choice?
It is. This is my camp slideshow playlist.
Love it.
I like the way you sing, and when you dance with me, I like the face you make, and when you dance with me, I like the rules you break, and when you dance with me, I like the cake you bake, and when you dance with me, I like the chance you take. So won't you dance with me? I don't know why I love you. I just know I can't stop thinking of you. Oh wait.
Lauren, can you put in the chat who the artist is? This is awesome. We all should take this for a camp playlist. This is.
I love you. I just know I can't stop thinking of you. Oh wait. It's 'cause you make me smile. You always make me smile. You always make me smile. I don't know why. You always make me smile. Just know I can't stop thinking of you. Oh wait. It's 'cause you make me smile. You always make me smile.
Still have a couple more minutes until our official kickoff, but I love seeing some familiar faces logging back in and names. Gets me pumped for the day. Lauren, you are a rock star. We need to run a session next time on playlists and slideshows.
Anytime I hear a song, I'll add it to my Spotify playlist. If I'm at the movies, coffee shop, I'm like, there we go. But I do
Love
not
it.
have premium Spotify right now, so we're just going through a McDonald's commercial.
It's no problem. I appreciate it. We have to figure out how to get them as a sponsor for Coca.
Whatever your mess, Cascade Plastic. PC Optimum bonus point.
When you try to find the words but they ain't flowing. When you're sitting by the phone but no one's calling. Call me up and I'll be on my way. When you're acting like you're fine but you ain't coping. And you're listening to too much Leonard Cohen. Hallelujah's just a prayer away. If you're lost and alone in the dark and you're all cried out.
Awesome. So friends, welcome. It is exactly 12 o'clock, day 2. Love seeing some familiar faces again this morning, and some new ones who I have not had a chance to meet. So as Lauren wrote up in the host, and Lauren, I apologize if I'm jumping in too quickly. All right. If you wouldn't mind in the chat, just please introducing yourselves so we know your full name, which camp you are with, and even where you're located. And we can even take it a step further because Lauren rocked us out with some really nice, fun music, just how we're feeling this morning. It could be a simple one word that we're looking for, or 2 or 3. I'm not going to hold you to it, but it could be excited, tired, sleepy, hungry, full. Let's get one word in that chat, if we wouldn't mind, with your introduction to get a sense of kind of just how we're feeling right now. So, all right. Pumped, Brandon. Relieved, whoop, whoop. I'm loving this. Energized, awake. Oh my gosh, keeping going. I love this. Present, present, present. Ready to learn. Excellent. Distracted. Good answer. Good word. Ready. Ready. Excited. Let's rock this. I'm getting pumped. I'm getting pumped up from this. Excited, ready to learn. Awesome. Jazzed. Very cool. Again, my name is Sam Roberts. I am thrilled to go a little round two with this COCAcademy. I have to tell you, I have been so impressed by your team, your community, the love and appreciation, not only for the deliverables, the experiences you create, but the hard work that goes into making those experiences count. I think the word I'll use is enthralled, really enthralled and excited and appreciative. I think we don't do this enough, and I don't, as a professional, as a dad, as a camp director myself, I don't do this enough of talk about gratitude. And I have to say, I left yesterday with a real sense of gratitude and appreciation for the professionals in this community who are providing such a meaningful, life-changing experience for a segment of our world and community that need it a lot. And I think I'm not articulating this well, but I just need to know that I walked away feeling deeply appreciative for the work that you do, and feel lucky enough for anyone, God forbid, whoever has to go through what they're going through, to know that there is this amazing, committed group of professionals to create the space specifically for your participants and members of our universe. So with that, I just wanted to start with that, a sense of gratitude and appreciation. So love that you guys, many of you, excuse me, I want to take that back. Many of you and all of you, instead of just saying you guys, collectively as human beings are ready to do another set of learning. So today's session, to clarify, I'm actually going to quickly, Lauren, do you mind giving me sharing capabilities so I can just throw up a couple of little things here to help guide our conversation?
Jennifer, I think you might have to do that. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I apologize to be so needy. All right. Okay, here we go. You get to see that I am sometimes a good multitasker, not always a great multitasker. And we can, everyone seeing my screen okay? Thumbs up if you are. Where is that? Hold on, I'm going to stop actually real quick, because I just lost all of you when I was doing that for little technical difficulties. I apologize. I am struggling right now, but here we go. Let me escape, and again. Okay, I am back and a little more functional. I have the joy of having, and I'm sure you can acknowledge this, dual screens, and my top screen I realized was not off, and as my cursor went up to the top, I realized that I could not see all of you. So we're going to go through this again, and I appreciate your patience with me as we rock and roll together. All right. So here we are. Hear every voice. We know what we're looking for, and we know what we can do. So with this being said, talking about active listening, what are we listening for and why is it important? So if we can, if anyone's comfortable to quickly share with me why they even came to the session. Anyone feel comfortable unmuting themselves?
I'll unmute myself.
Yes.
Nicole,
thank you.
Nicole Bailey, Camp Hobie. I came to this session because I know as a camp director, we get, we really want to hear what our volunteers have to say. We really want to be there, but we always have so much going on in our head that even if we are listening, somebody else might not think we are. Like it doesn't look like we're actively engaged. And so I'm always looking for more tips to focus. So
love that, Nicole. Applaud you, appreciate you having the screen on, unmuting yourself, and even sharing that. Anyone else in that same category? We can do some thumbs up. Either use the emoticons. I like that. Okay. What else? Is there anything else when we thought of this session, making sure, especially an executive session, of looking at how do we make sure every voice is heard? Was there something else that you came in with a goal of?
Well, I serve a large population of different ethnicities, language, cultures of origin, etc. So I think my experience is that people do speak differently, and I'm also an immigrant, so sometimes I've misunderstood the fundamental culture here. So just to constantly be aware of that so that I'm not misunderstanding people or trying not to be misunderstood as well.
Great. Beverly, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And also sharing your vulnerability a little bit in terms of like, I'm in this category as well, and understanding that. That's something I want to applaud and appreciate. Anything else?
I can say that I frequently find myself struggling with my staff to make sure that they are bringing everything up that they want to, that they're not feeling complacent and just kind of going with the flow until something big happens and then they explode. And I'm always trying to learn the right questions to ask to make sure that they feel comfortable sharing before it gets to that point. But it's like an ongoing give and take.
Awesome. Brandon, thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else, the thumbs of hands, either in the emojis in the thing or there, and double up too, of just, there's a lot there. It's like asking the right questions, teaching your team to be a self-advocate. I think that's the other thing. We want to also create emotionally safe environments too. And that a lot of that comes down to making sure that we validate and listen to what they have to say and create the space for them to feel comfortable enough to share. There's a lot here when we talk about even beyond the subtext context of making sure that when we're making these high level, high functioning executive decisions, even in real time at camp, that we're continuing to make sure that those voices are heard, but even taking a step back and remembering, like, what can we do as professionals in either guiding our teams that of our employees or even our volunteers, of making sure that they feel heard. Active listening is not easy. Okay, active listening is step one. Okay, and step two is also then making sure people feel heard. All right, so we're going to go back, and it's just a little keep us on task here. So the questions are, what are we listening for and why is it important? Okay, what are we listening for and why is it important? So Brandon, going back to your question, when you enter in a dialogue with some of your people, and I don't want to put you on the spot, so feel comfortable. Like, what are you listening for? When you talk about active listening, what are the things that you're trying to pull out in a dialogue to get your team to share with you how they're feeling?
Well, and I think that you really hit on it right there. It's not just listening to the words and the thoughts, it's listening to the feelings and trying to see what the emotion is behind what people are saying, because the same words can mean very different things if the emotion is different, in how they're being delivered. And some people are better at hiding that emotion than others, and you have to dig even deeper to figure it out.
Right.
I'm a psychologist, and I still like, it's work to do that, right? But yeah, I think it's both listening to the thoughts and to the emotions that you really have to pay attention to.
100%.
And it's Michelle. I think we also need to look at the body language. So it's not just listening, it's looking as well.
Yes, Michelle, 100%. Brandon, first of all, thank you again for pushing back there and reinforcing it. And Michelle, for your coming up body language. This is what why I'm struggling so much right now, is because I miss being in person. Like, being at conferences and as an extrovert. So where I get my energy are from others. And especially in guiding and leading in conversations and having, this chance to be together with you, I can't really get that feeling when I'm in a room or at a conference or either up on stage, to be able to get a sense of kind of where everyone is at. It's a little bit harder. I don't know if anyone's wearing pants right now. That's the number one thing. I have no idea. And you don't know if I'm wearing pants right now, but that's our baseline. But even more so of like, just being able to read the energy, and we can do a little bit of that over here. But Michelle said it's the body language. So much of active listening is also the opportunity of connecting with someone, and connecting with someone at a very real way. Our portfolios, our to-do lists, for those of you with me in setting priorities, are so full. Yes, Beth, I'm so glad you let me know you're wearing pants. All right. It's awesome. I love that you're wearing pants. So thank you for saying that. But what I'm saying before is that validating, taking that humanistic piece of this. One of the things that I love to talk about and am really passionate about is actually sales training, but more importantly, the notion of relational sales. So relational sales, not what the subject is on, but it goes straight to this point, Brenda, what you're saying, is about creating a meaningful relationship with someone else. And in the process, in our roles that we're doing as supervisor, as camp directors, as CEOs, COOs, as professionals and execs, we have the responsibility of fostering and creating a team. And especially going back to Nicole's first comment about listening and creating that space for our volunteers, in which so many of our collectively, as in I wish I could say I'm part of the community, but I'm feeling like I'm entering in. Our collective communities is based on a lot of volunteer work and volunteers that we have to engage them in the right way. One of the true tests about active listening is being able to then refer back to. So there's a sense of being heard. I've had different teachers and mentors, different things, who were great at writing things down. There is something to be said when you are having a conversation with someone and they're actually taking notes. It demonstrates that there's a further level of things. And I don't know if anyone uses this simple tool in terms of active listening, but making sure that when you are having those conversations, and especially if it's a little more of getting a little deeper in terms of like what's going on, that you're taking notes. It's something that I do on occasion. I wish I did better of all the time. I also really am trying to be focused on the person in the square, wherever they are, or in person, of really understanding what they're feeling. But taking notes is also a way of demonstrating that you're listening, okay? And that you're caring about what's being shared. The other piece is to this puzzle. I've done that in my job and employees. Okay, love that. Deborah, thank you for sharing that. Is using I statements. So even before you can take the notion of active listening, before you can take the notion of like making sure your people feel heard, is you have to create the space for them to do that. And you have to create the space in terms, like I said earlier, about being a self-advocate. We have to create a baseline operation that's a tone setting. And the tone setting is so important in creating the emotional safe environment that we operate in, whether it's with our professional staff, whether it's with our volunteers, whether it with be a family, Beverly, that we're first interacting with or intaking that information, of establishing a safe place. That can be as simple as leading with an I statement. I'm really excited for what we're about to talk about. Or I understand that the conversations that we're about to have right now are challenging. This is an entire, like Beverly, to your point about connecting with a family who's about to, you're intaking into the process, that there's so much happening right now. And I can't even begin to empathize or understand because I'm not there in it in this moment in time with you. But I want you to know that I do understand and I do care. And my goal is to figure out the best way for us to move forward together. So simple, clear, empathetic guidelines and principles, I feel like are the keys to the kingdom. I wish I was better at it. There are some people who do radical empathy, who create programs. I don't know if there's a camp called Camp Stomping Ground that anyone's familiar with. It's a wonderful, amazing organization that is built on this notion of radical empathy, that what they do and what they create is powerful. So for the parking lot, or as I said before, for those in the Pacific Northwest, or actually care a little bit in different ways, let's put it in the bike rack, that we are taking a time to take a look at Camp Stomping Ground, because it goes back to this conversation of hearing, of validating, of being empathetic. All right. So the notion of empathy, we have to first and foremost really focus in on, okay? Setting the groundwork, setting the goals for the conversation, and establishing that as executives, it's really important to understand a lot of times our team may not really be knowing what direction we're trying to go in, and their portfolios are vast, okay? Even from Larry provided awesome intake about a great tool called Toggle, not to embarrass him, about like his terms of his priorities of like from grant writing to event management for participants in intake. There is so much on their portfolios that every time they enter in a conversation, they're not really sure which hat they're wearing at which point in time. So making it clear. The other thing that I don't always do, but trying to do more of, is making sure there's an agenda before a meeting. That creates a baseline of understanding that these are the tasks that going into, which then provide your team, your volunteers, and even actually during the summer season, and you're having a staff meeting, to provide an agenda in advance. Even it goes on a whiteboard in the staff lounge or in the office. You don't have to print out. We don't want to destroy a lot of trees, but getting people to understand what's going to be covered is a great first step for allowing them to come into a place of knowing what is expected of them. And then the next step from there is allowing the place for people to feel comfortable to be a self-advocate. If they don't feel emotionally safe, they're not going to share. So what do we do? What are some of you, because you are amazing professionals, and Brandon, not to put you in the pot, but as a licensed psychologist, this is your wheelhouse. What are some tips or tricks that you have to create an emotional safe environment for the people that you are working with or creating a conversation with?
I think one of the most basic is just to listen without judgment, just to, kind of create that space where, and it's a tricky line sometimes to walk, because you don't necessarily want to come across as agreeing with everything they're saying, but you want to let them know that you hear everything that they're saying, and that's okay, and that it's okay if you disagree. So it's, it's kind of this tricky balance of kind of letting them know that it's safe to express thoughts and opinions, and it's okay when they differ from mine or from anybody else's, and that we actually grow stronger because of that. So it's about building that culture and setting up everyone for success. You never know for sure with these old quotes, but I think it's been attributed to Thomas Jefferson that dissent is the highest form of patriotism, or the highest form of democracy, or whatever you want to call it. And I think when you can empower people to say that, disagreeing, asking the challenging questions isn't a bad thing, as long as we don't get too emotional about it, and we can use that to just rationally talk things through. So I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place with that. But
No, you're not all over the place. You're spot on in terms of, creating that safe environment. I love it. Anyone else have some tips or tricks or practices that they like to try to do in creating an emotionally safe space to have these dialogues?
I do. Hi,
Please.
Deanna from Sunrise.
Deanna, absolutely.
I think that it's all about not what you're saying, but how you say it. And it's something that we really try to make sure all of our supervisors and counselors are considered supervisors as well. They're supervising children, and then we have the supervisors of the supervisors. And so the system that we have, that we try to grind into everybody's heads, and it's very close to what Brandon was saying, was that when you're speaking to someone, listening is a practice, and you really have to practice that because it's very important, but validating regardless of what's being said to you is important. And then when you respond, whether or not the person likes the response or not, you respond with understanding, and you circle back to that validation, and you try to put a positive spin on what you're saying. But you can tell somebody that they're doing the wrong thing, but there's two ways to do that, and you can sour any staff member, any camper, any parent at any time if your tone or your body language or your words are rough around the edges. There's a way to soften absolutely everything.
Awesome, Deanna. Thank you for that piece of the puzzle. It's so true. At the same time, during the summer operational season and even non-summer operational season, we are moving at 1,000 miles an hour, right? And how do we collectively take the time to stop? How do we create the bandwidth within ourselves to stop and provide that real feedback? So I think you are spot on. At the same time, it's hard. I know when I have 500 kids, 300 staff members, a walkie-talkie, a cell phone, a spouse with 3 young children in another location, and I'm trying to deliver on all of the things that are on my to-do list on top of being able to have that conversation in real time. I struggle with it, especially when I am multitasking in my head of all the other pieces, or the issue of the food service that I'm dealing with, or another piece that's happening, to make that time count. And I think, Deanna, you hit a huge point, because the time that I haven't done that have added to my to-do list because I didn't do it appropriately. And that time, whether it's 10 seconds or 10 minutes, and time is not really a luxury that we have in the summer season operationally, that we are moving and we are flying. Literally, I mean, as camp directors and professionals, we have to fly. Like, there are times I feel like my feet don't touch the ground between the dining hall, the health, the parent issue, kicking a staff member, firing them out of camp, having a kid who's going home who's really have a hard time with homesickness. Like, sometimes my feet don't touch the ground, and to be able to then stop and breathe is one of the first steps, like you said, is to be present. So the other thing that I've learned how to do and remind myself is to take a breath. So just the simple process of demonstrating mindfulness in half a second to a staff member when I go, I hear you. and I'm present. And the fact that when people logged in today, some of the words that they said is present. Like, that's a powerful space to be. Like, what does it mean to be really present? Right? What does it mean to be in tune with the body language and creating that emotional space? To be able to say, you have my undivided attention. There are times that I'm failing my own children by not creating that space for them of undivided attention. My 5-year-old, when she comes home from kindergarten and wants to like sit and draw and tell me everything, and I'm like, I love you, and I have to get on this Zoom call. Like, no, but like the times that I'm like, yeah, I hear you. I'm so excited to hear about what you have to say. I do have to jump on this call, but at this time period, I'm going to come get you and we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about it. It doesn't meet her initial needs of wanting to share everything, and it breaks my heart a little bit, but it also setting realistic expectations. The challenge a lot of times too, when we talk about active listening, we talk about creating a space for people being heard, is, are we also remembering to circle back, right? How do we close that loop from conversations? And this is one of the hardest things, right? Is to like go back to that person and thank them for the conversation. So raise your hand or a thumbs up if you struggle sometimes in circling back to people well after the conversation to say thank them for that time. I know I do. Yep. This is like one of those things that I'm like, ugh, if I could only do it, because I know when I do it, when we do it, when we go back to that person and validate the conversation that we had, not just in real time, not just thanking them, you know what, I really appreciate you sharing me, but like the next day when you're at camp and you're flying and you go back to that same staff member who share with you a challenge that they're having, and you go up and, you know what, I just want to thank you again for taking the time to tell me about what's going on. I know I wasn't able to necessarily solve everything, but just you sharing that with me made a world of difference. Like that's what I put on the Superman cape. And I'm like, I did it, right? I delivered on what I was trying to do. The impact on that staff member, when you do that, again, you may never help them anymore, but you created such a deep connection with them and validating them, not in that moment when they know you're multitasking and doing 1,000 other things, but you took the time to circle back to them and thank them. Or even better, you circle back in and said, hey, I asked other people, like, I took your feedback, we talked about it as a team. Has it gotten better for you? Right? Like, has that gotten better for you? Is it, I'm circling back to, again, not only validate what you said, but like, I care enough to acknowledge it, and then I'm following up with you about it. Or when you ask and you delegate it, this is another thing we talked about from our to-do list from our prior conversation. We're delegating those responsibilities. You had that information, you got that key insight from that staff member, you brought it to a member of your upper leadership team or a camp counselor or someone and say, I need your help with that. And then how many of us take the step back to find out, hey, did that situation get resolved? And if they say no, you're empowering them in, but the fact that you also say that you're asking them those questions, like, these are like gifts that I have to continually remind myself to do. And I think if we strive to do a little bit more of this, it makes a difference. But I want to go back to the notion of being heard, if that's okay. There's also some amazing stuff that's happening in this chat. And I apologize, I am not able to multitask enough to do this really well. But I want to get back to some of the chat piece when we get a second. But I want to throw this up here real quick again.
Sam, while you're doing that, can I just say something?
Please.
I don't know. I'm sure most of you walk around your camps with a notepad or a clipboard. I think the clipboard is the best tool ever. But in addition to my writing everything down and prioritizing what I have to do in the moment or what I can go back to, I actually have a follow-up list that whether or not I'm delegating it or I'm going back to it. So I don't cross one thing off my list after a conversation or a scenario is done. So I transfer over a follow-up list, and it has been very helpful because, Sam, as you said, we have 5 million things going on. There's always something slipping between the cracks, but it has been truly helpful in my world to be able to go back and validate that family member, that camper, or that staff member that has brought something to my attention.
So well said, and such a great piece of advice and a nugget. The ability, again, it goes back to writing it down. It demonstrates not only listening, but also gives you tools and a roadmap for your success. I want everyone to make sure they can see my screen right now. This is a quote that's on my desk at camp, and it's something that really speaks to me. Being heard is so close to being loved that for the average person, they are almost indistinguishable. Okay. Agree, disagree. How does it feel? Right? Right. Being heard is the same as being loved. Like, powerful. I get emotional every time I see it and hear it, because at the end of the day, if we can create environments in which our communities, staff, parents, medical professionals, lay leaders, board members, etc., feel heard, we're doing exactly what we set off to do. And being heard, going back to Brandon, and actually going back to the real crux of this session, which is about making sure everyone's voice is connected before we have to make those executive decisions. We're not always able to do everything our staff want us to do. We're not always able to deliver on the experiences that our families want for them. And we're not able to meet everyone's needs. But if they're heard, if that individual feels a sense that you took their ideas and their thoughts seriously, and even if you don't make that decision, but you made sure they felt heard, you're doing the right thing. And one of my little tool for this, I'm sure you have tons of tools in your toolkits already, and probably some of you are much better over this than I am. But in having a staff meeting as a professional, smaller, I'm talking about as an executive director, of having to execute at different things. And I bring the team together and we whiteboard a bunch of different ideas. What I have to always do is take that information, say thank you, and then always share that, like, this is something that we need to make a decision on. And if I'm not ready to quite make that decision right then and there, to give it the space, because giving space and time, I always feel allows people to kind of digest it a little bit. And I've learned from my mistakes that I'd whiteboard with everyone, have already the idea of what I wanted it to go, and then make a decision in that meeting. Sometimes it was fine. People were like, okay, we're all on the same page, great. Or even if I disagree, not a big deal. But at the same time, when I would stop and say thank you, let everyone go off and say, I'm going to circle back and do it. And then I sit in that same space. I don't leave with them. And I take a few minutes to look through the board. And then I go up to the individual who may have had a dissenting opinion. And I say, I really appreciate what you shared. I want to share with you before that I'm leaning towards moving in this direction. I haven't made that decision yet. I'm leaning in that direction. And I just want to make sure that you know that, like, I appreciate your opinion and it matters. And it made me really second guess what I initially thought, which has now helped me to reaffirm the decision of where I'm going. But you, by challenging me, allowed me the ability to get there. And I want to thank you. Okay. Validate, active listening, creating a safe pace, and still making the executive decision, but giving them the validation, the reinforcement that their voice matters and is heard. Yes, Brandon, 100%. If that already made a decision, don't ask them the question, because you're setting yourself up for total failure. Okay. And you're right. That is the classic example of, and when I say make a decision, it's right. It's like staunch. There are times that, and what I want to make sure I articulated, if I didn't articulate it clearly enough, was I may be leaning in a direction, but there's a big difference between making a decision and not. To put a team together, if you already know in your heart that you're moving in a certain direction, or your board president has already told you this is the direction that you need to go in, and you're bringing the team in to share it, that you lost any goodwill, or the love that we're trying to create goes out the door. How are we feeling? Okay. Anything, we have some more time left. So Jennifer, I want to get to some of this chat. We have tried to box, somebody do a suggestion box for our summer set that we look at and add drastic topics in our daily morning meeting. It allows them to bring things up anonymously, and we know that we've designated time to discuss those things each day. Love that. How many of you have a suggestion box at camp? Okay. How many of you have a suggestion box and actually use it? I love that, because I have to tell you, I've had a suggestion box before. Nothing happened with it, right? And then the person that I may have assigned responsibility for, I did not keep accountable, and suggestions sat there. And so the times that I'm running around being like, yay, Sam, super camp director, how are you doing? How's this going? How's that going? Okay. And they're like, not great. 3 days ago, I told you that there was an issue in the boys' bathroom. It's still an issue. So me smiling and making sure everyone feeling good was like, I look like an absolute idiot, and I apologize for that, right? So the key is whatever systems we put in place, whether it be suggestions, whether it be Google Forms, which I love, a virtual Google form, or anything else, QR codes posted. I love that idea. Like in real time, boom, let's go do that. As long as whatever system we are to receive information is actually a system that's intact and accountable, because those systems, if we don't follow through on them, it's sometimes worse than even asking the question. And that happens a lot in the industry that we're in terms of the space and speed that we're moving at. Whew, 20 minutes left, if not a little bit less than that. Where else are we at? What are some things that we didn't get a chance to cover yet? What are some outlying questions or pieces that we can dive into together?
Has anyone had the experience at camp, particularly when you have a lot of experienced, whether it's counselors or mid-level people at your camp, and you're trying your best to listen and be open, and suddenly you find out that everyone knows something, that there's a problem, except the camp director? It's sort of like everyone's keeping the secret from those in leadership, but everyone seems to know it. And then you find out either after the camp session or randomly. Has anyone had that situation?
Little thumbs up reaction. Yeah, I think there's definitely people nodding and acknowledging. And those that aren't, I applaud you, because that means you really have a truly safe environment and a flow of communication. I think those are the pieces. So Jane, what you spoke about, I think is an issue that's systemic to the industries of summer camping. That's not just unique in any one segment or another. And what it also means is that we did never establish that emotionally safe environment. And even more so, we did not reinforce the ability to make sure that we're all on the same page. So that is a systemic issue. And I hate to say it, is a systemic failure, that we have failed in creating an environment in which the ability for our people to report and share and be on the same page. And it happens. So when I say failure, Jane, you did not, we just, that it fell apart. That happens a lot of times. It falls apart. So then what are the tools that we do to ensure that that doesn't happen? So that we have QR codes, we have virtual Google Forms, we have suggestion boxes. What are other tools that we have at people's camps and in their environments to create a nice, clear flow of information and accountability?
So Sam, this is Nicole. We had a session at COCA actually a few years ago that a piece of it stuck with me, and I'm also a big clipboard person, so I completely validate the love of that. But what it does too as camp directors is a lot of times when we're kind of hustling around with that clipboard, it makes us seem unavailable, and being aware that even though you feel that you're smiling at everyone and you're available, that a lot of times it's actually not shining through. You might be thinking a smile, but you might not be showing it. And I found that just understanding that and recognizing that, some folks, they want to approach you. They know that you'll be there for them, right? But they'll think, oh, this isn't a good time. She looks really stressed.
Right.
And so just recognizing like our facial expressions and the way that we're just being can also have an effect on that. Now, that's not like a QR code or a process, but that is something that stuck with me for several years. So
no, those are, I have to tell you, when the times that I am able to remind myself about when I'm the best is when I get to a very humanistic level. Okay. I'm the best when I take my breath and I make sure that I am present for those people. And I'm not trying to fly around and say, great job, because that's just surface noise. And that when people have a conversation, in particular, my favorite trick or trait is getting eye level. So eye level with a camper, I'll go down on one knee and wait, and to make sure that I can connect with them that way. At the staff member, I try not to be in my office as much as I can at camp. It's one of the things that I know that it's hard to do, but when I'm out in the field, that's when I'm doing what I really am supposed to be doing. But if I am in my office, I make sure that I go away from my desk. I never have a conversation with a staff member unless it's 2 or 3 different times. And let's say it's getting to a disciplinary action, or I'm actually behind my desk. I go and I sit there. I have 2 chairs in my office and I don't sit behind my desk. In a dining hall, when there's a question or something comes up, I go and sit next to that individual. That physical, when I can be present and eliminate barriers, whether at eye level or whether the breathing, so they know that I'm present, is exactly what you said. And it, the ROI on being a human, the ROI on being present and being real and being genuine. And even sometimes, Nicole, I'm going to piggyback on what you said, because it was so spot on. Like when I say, like, listen, I want to hear what you have to say. I want to tell you that I'm struggling with some food service stuff and, an issue that we have in upper campus boys, but I want to make sure that I hear what you want to say. So you're providing a context and you're sharing with them a little more insight that you're having, or like, what, I was dealing with a lot of stuff last night. I'm a little tired. So I just want to make sure you know that, like, acknowledging, it's night and day, and creating that space for people to just connect. So Nicole, thank you for that. Sarah has a hand up, but I also saw Beverly just throw something in the chat too. So go for it, Sarah.
I was just going to say, we tried to do a threefold at Case Camp, where our director will have a whiteboard outside of her office or his office with designated times just to be in there if someone needs to go in and talk about a situation, or, get something off their chest or something that's bothering them. And then every day we do a lead counselor meeting where we ask our leads to bring any situations that are going on in the cabins between staff members, counselors, to our attention. It doesn't always happen. Some stuff gets overlooked, like someone else had mentioned. And then we do the same with our programming staff. We have a meeting every day. This is what's going on. What were our problems yesterday? How can we improve them today? So they're not foolproof. Like, obviously things slip through the cracks, but that's something that we've tried to implement to try to give everyone a voice, to make sure that they have a space to be heard.
Yes. Meetings for the sake of meetings are horrible. We all have been meetings for the sake of meetings. We've all been employees at places where we're having a meeting for the sake of a meeting. And it's like, you just took away 30 minutes of my life and I'm never getting that back. Just so you know, I am never getting the 30 minutes of my life back again. At the same time, when there's functionality and there's an appropriate, a set space to create a flow of information. Here's the other thing too, Sarah, which I love what you said. And then also, Pauline, I want to apologize if I'm pronounced that incorrectly. I apologize. Can you share with me what is it? The right way to pronounce it?
It's Fallon.
Fallon. I am so sorry.
It's fine. It's
Fallon. I want to call on
your.
I want to get to your question, but I just want to make another point too. I do have to say, and this is a very strong word. I was about to say I was a hate. I don't want to use hate. I dislike all staff meetings. Okay. I dislike all staff meetings for a variety of different reasons, and I try not to do it. I like to share information. All right. I think there's value in sharing information in real time. But the classic example of an all staff meeting is you've got a happy camp population of staff and volunteers who are doing great. And they're really loving what they're doing. And then Sam's staff member goes, I'm having a great time, but the food sucks. Guess what? Half the staff think food suck right now. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. Remember the time the grilled cheese was wet or cold, it didn't taste good? Oh yeah. And we don't have it. Where's the fresh fruit? We don't have fresh fruit anymore. And oh my gosh, like there hasn't been hot chocolate anymore. I lost the entire camp because that one person said something that not everyone else agrees with. So for those that you have all staff meetings and they go well, I applaud you. I also would say if you're challenging with them, I would recommend not, and also rephrasing it that this is an information sharing. We're bringing everybody together because we're going to share some information. If there's opportunity to give some feedback, these are the assigned flow of designation of who the people that are supposed to go to it. But let me go back to your hand that's been raised and being so patient. Thank you.
Thanks. So let me just preface that in my camp, we are 100% volunteers. None of us take a salary. This is what we do as volunteers. We have a number of those others, right? Can you show if anyone else thumbs who have 100% volunteer staff? Yeah, there's a few. Yep. Right. So I always wanted to preface that because that's my lead. It'll make sense when I ask my question. What do we do when our voice isn't being heard by our staff? Ooh, that's a big one. When our voice isn't being heard by our staff, so the volunteers, right? To clarify they're not hearing, they're not getting the information that validating it, listening. Like they're not giving on a monthly basis, getting what you need, what you need for budget, what you need for camp to plan, whatever the case may be. What do we do when our voice isn't being heard by our staff? Anybody have an answer to that?
I'll just say I completely relate, Fallon, because like you said, we're all volunteers. It's not like a staff member where you can pull rank, not that you would want to, but like you can't say this is, required or you will be terminated. You're a volunteer. So it's a very gray area of how you can ask and require whatever the result or the desired outcome is without, Exactly. I don't want to be holding 15 hats at the end of the day. Right. Exactly. Holding the ED title is plenty. I don't need the right now. No so question. I don't have an answer, but I definitely relate.
Let me quickly jump in because I know we only have a few minutes left.
I have a question. Do volunteers have job descriptions and volunteer contracts? And is there not that kind of understanding in terms of, and I understand being heard when you're asking something of them and need to get something back, but what's the base in terms of what do you give to a volunteer staff person for the summer? Are they not somehow contracted with you? And is
So,
there
and
not that?
this is more so our planning committee, so our core people that we meet with on a monthly basis. And we all have job descriptions, but only 2 of us have contracts. So myself and the camp director have contracts in which we are contractually obligated for X amount of time. And the rest of the core committee, I appoint. And they have an understanding that yes, this is a volunteer position, but yet you do have these roles to obtain.
So my quick response, which I don't know if it's any good or not, but what I will share with you is it all goes back to deliverables. We have a mission to create a magical, safe, healthy environment for our kids and delivering and making sure that that's the context to go through. We can't deliver on what we're trying to do unless I have X, Y, and Z. That you reinforce the mission of the organization, you reinforce the end outcome. We're going to disappoint a lot of kids and families this summer if we can't get X, Y, and Z together. We're going to fail. I'm going to fail as the professional in delivering the best experience I can if we can't make sure that we hit these benchmarks. And going back to the end outcome and reverse engineering it back is one of, I think, the best way of reinforcing what we're in for, especially as volunteers, and acknowledging it. Every minute that I have with you is a gift. You're giving me that gift. And I recognize that and I appreciate that. At the same time, I'm working so hard to try to do this. I need your help. I love I statements. I think I statements are one of the best diffusers and the best baseline to start the dialogue moving forward. And even putting the preface of will fail. We will not be successful if we can't make sure that these are happening is just a nice reminder of where it is and where we're going. And also again, provides that context from a humanist way, saying the same that I'm going to fail. Like people don't want other people to fail. And they're going to help support you in that way. And especially if you're saying, I'm going to fail in delivering what it is that we're trying to do. If we can't get that X, Y, and Z, whatever that piece of the puzzle is that needs to get done, or responsibility or job, not job description, but like the steps towards the carnival or the program supplies for this year, or what's really in the art room, et cetera. Like those are the things. And just going back to what is that mission, that end goal? We have a shared vision of where that is, and we need to make sure we work to get there.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, love it. What a team. What a team. 6 minutes left till we officially have to log off. Again, time is a gift, and I know there's a lot of stuff happening. If there's any other further questions, want to make sure that I can help answer it. Overall show of hands that I walked away with at least one little nugget information that was helpful. Okay, awesome. One little nugget. That's all we care about. Again, back to that same quote. Being heard to so many is the same as truly being loved. Let's all find a way to figure out how we can make sure that we are really listening and hearing. And we still have to make executive decisions, but when we can be a human from that humanist perspective, those I statements of being real and acknowledging who we are, acknowledging our faults as well as our challenges, and being present, we will make this world a better place and deliver even higher levels of what our program is. You are all incredible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And looking forward to continuing to learn and grow with you. Everyone for participating, amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam. That was great. I think the word of the day is definitely present, and I wrote that down a number of times. That was great. Hope to see you all at the keynote at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and at more of COCAcademy throughout the the rest of the day and tomorrow. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. No,
Thank
you guys, this is a team. This is a team. I love it. Thank you.
This is my hand. Take it now, it's yours to keep. These are my eyes, look into the man you see. How a rainbow needs the rain, or it will never shine again. It's the same for you and me. These are my footsteps, falling surely next to yours. This is the moment that we've been waiting for. It's our story now to tell. Raise the curtain, ring the bell, and open up the door.
Lauren, thank you for hosting.
Oh, thank you. That was wonderful.
Okay,
Yeah, that was really, really great.
Okay.
So much.
great. Beverly, we're still in it together, my friend. You stuck with me with the last one, even when my friend Beverly questioned, am I in the right session? Do I even like this guy? And we're still in it. So appreciate your honesty, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
I need to be challenged to get out of my comfort zone.
You and me both. You and me both. Share that vulnerability.
I'm taking good notes.
I love it. Thank
My
you.
camp committee has a meeting on Monday night, so I'm like